When he speaks, he carries the weight of the office of the chief executive. Presidential spokesman Edwin Lacierda is probably the most recognizable spin master of President Aquino. After all, he is the president's public alter ego. Lacierda is the torchbearer in a word war with alarmists at the lower house who keep laughing over the president's waning popularity. Dry, curt, and sometimes witty, Secretary Lacierda is never at a loss for words on issues close to the president, especially the impeachment trial of ousted Chief Justice Renato Corona. We now have with us Presidential Spokesman Edwin Lacierda. Good evening, Secretary Lacierda, and welcome to Solar Network News.
Good evening, Pia. Nice office, nice studio. By the way, let me question that. Let me disagree.
What are you going to question? What are you going to disagree with?
Popularity is not waning. It's still consistently at 60s, so that's record level actually. We've looked into the other previous
So
presidents.
not waning but dipping ng konti.
Hindi naman, 60 plus.
Naman.
That's unprecedented yun eh.
Okay,
So,
well, let's begin with this question about the Chief Justice. Is there a balay candidate for Chief Justice?
there's only a candidate of the president, pero we don't know yet because there's no list coming from the JBC.
Even without that list coming from the JBC, I'm sure meron na siyang naisip.
You know, the president is looking for a chief justice who is going to carry on his philosophy for judicial reform. So somebody who is in step with him in the fight against corruption in the area of the judicial branch of government.
I have three names in mind. Laila De Lima, Kim Henares, and Frank Drilon. Si Kim Henares kasi ang sabi ni Presidente about her was that, he liked the way he was doing. She was working in the BIR, she was very effective there. So it sounded like he wasn't too, hot about having her as CJ.
The president has mentioned he's both Kim and Laila are the two most feared public officials after the president. So ang preference ni Presidente, insofar as Kim is concerned, is let Kim stay in what she's doing right now.
Yeah, and Laila De Lima, Justice Secretary.
They have not spoken to each other yet on this point. So we don't know yet. And in fact, we don't know yet the sentiments of the president with respect to Laila and with respect to Senator Frank Drilon. I think Frank Drilon just mentioned that he is not looking to be Chief Justice.
Okay.
So there is no, we don't know yet who the JBC would choose or to pick from the various nominees.
Yeah. Is there anyone else there who you think the president might be interested in?
There's some names that are familiar.
Like?
Well, some names are familiar. A number of names are familiar. Apart from the three of them, there are also some government officials who are part of that. For instance, Cesar Villanueva, the Dean Cesar Villanueva, Francis Hardelesa, Tesser Bosa of SEC. So these are familiar names who are in government. So,
okay. What about outside government?
outside government, well, I saw the name of Dean Amado Valdez. Apart from that, the other names are familiar, but I'm not sure if they are. I really don't know.
Okay. There was some criticism about having Laila De Lima or Kim Henares as nominees for the Chief Justice position, or even Senator Drilon, dahil nga na-involved sila dun sa impeachment trial. What do you think of comments like that?
Well, number one, in terms of judicial philosophy, they are in step with the president when it comes to judicial reform. They've been with government since we started, and therefore we are very familiar with when the president speaks of reform, he knows or they know where we're headed. And so it would be grossly irresponsible for the president to appoint someone who doesn't share his philosophy.
When you say judicial reform, can you tell us exactly what it means, just in like 3
There's
sentences?
so much corruption in the judiciary. World Bank says that it takes 6 years for a case to be resolved in the court of origin. There's so much, you have to pick qualified judges, and you have to make sure that the administration of justice, insofar as the judicial branch is concerned, and also transparency and accountability in the judicial branch. We haven't seen that until Acting Chief Justice Tony Carpio decided to publish or post online the report, the SC budget. So these are things that we're looking for. We want openness. In fact, we had a running dispute with the on the budget of and the allowances of the judges during the time of Court Administrator Midas Marquez. During the time of Chief Justice Corona, we were asking for the JDF, and it took some time before they gave it to us.
What do you think now of former Chief Justice Renato Corona? He's busy making the rounds of speaking engagements. Tomorrow he has one in Clark.
Well, he's free to do that. We respect his right to express himself, and so we are, as long as, well, number one, we respect his whatever he wants to express. Of course, he will say his side of the story, but history has judged him, the senators have judged him, and let's move on.
As long as you were going to say?
As long as we know that what he's saying is true, and every time he says something which is not, inaccurate, we are ready to defend this government.
Okay. Are you expecting any attacks from him?
None at the moment.
Not at the moment. Are you still going to go after him, the BIR, specifically?
Well, the BIR sent a letter of authority to Chief Justice Corona, or the former Chief Justice Corona. So we don't know yet what's the status right now. But we'll see. We are waiting for, remember there was a request by the BIR Commissioner on the bank documents of Corona, Mr. Corona, and we will have to wait what will be the further developments on the side of Commissioner Internal Revenue, Kim Henares.
But did the banks respond? Are they cooperating?
I understand some of the banks responded. I don't know if all the banks responded. We'll wait from...
Responded positively. But were there negative responses from any of the banks?
We'll have to check with Commissioner Kim Henares. She'd be in a better position to ask that, answer that question.
Why do you have that smile on your face? What do you think of calls to not appoint a parang sunod-sunurang Chief Justice?
Hindi yan yun. Once you appoint a Chief Justice, he's on his own.
Independent.
Independent siya. That's the that's the presumption. That's the presumption of appointing a Chief Justice. You're the head of another branch of government, and so we expect you to be independent. Whether you are, whether you used to be an ally of the president or not. The important thing is two things the president asks from you is that you carry on the judicial reform, and that's something the president is looking at.
If you could measure how much of the president's political capital was expended for Corona's removal, what would that have been?
Well, what do you mean? Scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, how much political capital was spent on this?
The president was fully aware of the need for reform. First and foremost, just to go back. We were together, and some of the cabinet officials were together when Midas Marquez announced that there was a TRO issued to allow GMA to leave the country. At that point, sabi, tama, sobra na to. And so that started the decision that, he's been cooperating, he's been respecting the decisions of the Supreme Court. But this one was really the
last straw?
The straw that broke the camel's back.
So
it's and so he decided we cannot work with a Chief Justice who would always decide not for the people but for a certain personality.
So it was all right with him to use part of that political capital for this purpose.
Because it's high time. Let's move on. Let's really do judicial reform, and that's the reason why this whole proceeding went on.
And is that why his popularity ratings? You think? I'm sure you have studies on that. Is that why the popularity ratings dipped?
No, it's not.
No?
I think
hindi yun ang dahilan.
I think hindi yun ang dahilan dahil the very close yung isang survey wala pa yung decision eh. Yung isang survey.
Ano yung isang survey?
Pulse Asia and SWS.
Okay.
I think one of the surveys wala pa yung decision sa removal eh. There was no decision yet.
All right.
So, but clearly, if you look at the survey prior to how many would like Mr. Corona to be removed, around 70%, and the popularity of for Mr. Corona was down. So we don't believe that the president's popularity has swung. By the way, ang ganda ng wall niyo.
Thank you, video wall. You're trying to distract me, no? Have you done your own in-house survey on the president post-impeachment?
Wala pa.
Wala.
Wala pa.
Gagawa kayo? Papagawa kayo?
Secret.
Pa-share naman. Can you give us a clearer glimpse of the mining EO?
We have not, I'm not part of the discussion on the EO on mining. The people who are discussing this particular EO is the President ES, the Climate Change Cluster, Bebet Goson, Secretary Paje, Nery Acosta. You could see there the emphasis given to environmental concerns. And then you also have Secretary Purisima. Well, he's out now. It's Kim Henares who's taking care of the finance side. So you see there the holistic approach to mining.
But the entire administration is backing this fully.
Of course.
Okay, and you're happy with it. All members of the cabinet.
It will resolve one of the concerns of the mining industry because they saw the first draft, and apparently they're still looking at the first draft. But the first draft has made several changes now. So my understanding is the final EO is totally different from the first draft.
Oh, so, totally different. So, paano yung minahan ng bayan?
Ibig sabihin yung nakita nila, iba na yung sa ilalabas na EO kasi may further consultations pa. Remember, this was supposedly February lumabas pero dapat pinag-aralan ng husto palalo. So, further consultations were made to make sure that all the concerns were addressed.
Very quickly on Scarborough Shoal, was something lost in translation when the Philippines, when the President ordered a pull-out of our ships and then the Chinese vessels stayed put?
No.
No?
The President said we're pulling them out because of the weather.
But then the Chinese stayed? The
Chinese stayed, but they eventually pulled out also. But we can't dictate what the Chinese are saying.
Okay.
But there was a time that they pulled out, and that was what DFA stated. And after that, the Chinese decided to come back. Now, we're being asked, are we going to redeploy our vessels there? The President said, let's reevaluate the situation. So we're reevaluating the situation.
Okay. There's a weekly Liberal Party meeting to discuss party matters.
How did you know
Who will be the administration standard bearer in 2016?
Ang layo pa.
Malayo pa ba yun?
Layo pa.
Malapit na yun eh.
Wala pa yan. Layo
Wala
pa yan.
pa. Well, is it going to be Mar Rojas?
Wala pa yan. The President has not made any...
The President or the entire party?
Well, I'm not part of the LP, by the way, so I'm not in a position to say that.
Okay. Well, could Mar Rojas win against Jojo Binay?
I can't speculate on that.
Okay. Is the administration strategy to make sure that the President succeeds so that anyone who he anoints will win?
Of course.
Yes.
You have to make a program. Look, the promise kung walang korap, walang mahirap. You've got the social alleviation programs going. We're investing 45 billion. And by the way, those who are saying that we're not spending for our countrymen because of that 1 billion IMF fund, and which is, by the way, not part of the national government money, we're spending 45 billion, over $1 billion for CCT. So we want to make sure that we are able to break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. In the time of President Aquino.
Is there an in-house survey about Mar Rojas' chances against Jojo Binay?
None that I know of.
None that you know of?
We don't do surveys for that.
Okay. Kamusta na po yung Balay Samar? Tigil putukan ba? Or what? Permanent peace or industrial?
The Balay Samar?
Yes.
The Balay Samar, there's no factions anymore.
Okay. Let's talk about the revamp in the last 2 minutes of this interview. Yes. Is there going to be one? For example, what we heard, Executive Secretary George Ochoa will be ambassador to the U.S.
You know what?
Rene Almendras, wait, I'm not finished yet. Rene Almendras, Presidential Management Staff, Noel Bono, ang DOE, and Mar Rojas daw. Yes, and daming, actually, we've been hearing this over and over again. No?
Some of them, ngayon ko lang narinig. Like you're saying, Mar is going to ES, and ES is going to become ambassador to Washington. Those are not true.
Not true.
And if there's going to be a revamp, that's going to be announced by the President.
Coco Pimentel left Una. Are you taking him in?
That will be up to the LP. I don't know what the position of LP is.
Are the President and Coco Pimentel going to be meeting?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know?
I wouldn't know.
Or you wouldn't know when they're meeting?
Perhaps.
What do you
I
mean?
couldn't say categorically.
Perhaps they could meet. There's just no set date.
There are certain meetings I'm not apprised of, so I wouldn't know if they've met or if they're going to meet.
Why did you ask me to prepare pala Coke Zero for you? Does this have anything to do with the president's preference for Coke?
No,
Regular, light,
I prefer
or
Coke
zero?
Zero.
Ah, you prefer Coke Zero,
Yeah.
just like the... Well, speaking of that, no, kasi, well, andito ka na rin, ano, yung...
What?
When you mention Coke Zero and the president, you think of love life, eh, no? Kamusta na ba yung love? Did I actually ask that question? You wanna answer it? No. Is he dating somebody now?
Whether I know it or not, I'm not in a position to comment on the private matters of the president. I speak only on matters of state, not matters of the heart.
Wow, it sounds like a yes. And then there's a question here. Did Lacierda provide that intro spiel for you with a smiley face? Nope. No, not at all. Anyway, thank you very much, Secretary Edwin Lacierda.
Thank you,
Thank you
Tia.
for being here. Salamat.